This one is sort of a little bit of word problem. And the reason I say it's sort of a little bit of a word problem, it's basically telling you what to do. But how you write it down is very important here. It says to subtract 14 7/75 from 63. Round the answer to the nearest tenth. Again, subtract 14 7/75 from 63. Round the answer to the nearest tenth. Now, in dealing with this, you've got to remember what comes first here. What's coming first? So let's take a look at this one and see what's happening, all right? We are starting with 63 because we're going to subtract 14 7/75 from 63. That's what I mentioned earlier in the problem there. It's all about the wording. It's all about how that's worded. It's not subtract 63. It is 63 minus this 14 7/75 right there you go. All right. So let's see how that's going to stack up because 63 doesn't have a decimal. And this is what this one's about. This is just a simple little decimal arithmetic. Oh, and then we're going to round to the nearest tenth. So we're doing all sorts of good stuff here. We're in the hundredths place right now. So let's put 63 and we'll put a decimal right there so we don't forget. And we're going to put 14 7/75 right there, okay? And we're going to subtract. We're going to subtract. Now, you guys who've had these decimals and such, should be old school to you. Those of you who have not had it, this might be, well, what do we do? What do we do? We don't just bring 75 down. That's one thing we definitely don't want to do here. Let's put a couple of zeros right there. You see that? Now, once we do that, we are ready to kick in gear. It's almost like money. Almost like we've got $63 and we're going to subtract $14.75, all right? So let's do the deal. Let's do it there and see what happens. So we can't subtract 5 from 0. We can't subtract 7 from 0. So we really need to move all the way over here to that 3, and we're going to bring it down to a 2. So we're going to borrow actually a 1's place there. And we're going to distribute that over our 2 zeros here. We're going to make that into 100 basically. So how about it? We borrow from there. We're going to make that a 10. But we don't get too comfortable there, all right? Because we're going to have to borrow from that 10. It's going to make a 9. And then we've got a 10 going right in there. Okay, so now we're ready to do it. We're ready to do our subtraction. So we can take 10 minus the 5. We're going to have 5. We're going to say 9 minus the 2. And now we're going to take 9 minus the 7. We're going to get a 2. Jumping the gun a little bit there, folks. And now we're all of a sudden back to this number 2 and 4 here. What do? We can't subtract 4 from 2. So here we go. Now go visit the 6 and make that a 5. Bring a 12 over, and we should be about ready to close this thing down, all right? We can say 12 minus 4, which is going to give us 8. We can also say 5 minus 1, which will give us 4. So we're thinking basically, let's say we're making change. It should be about $48.25 or 48 25 That's where we are right now. But the question says, and y'all read it there with me, round the answer to the nearest tenth. So we're going to take this 48 25 and what we're going to do, we're going to transform it into the nearest tenth. Now you say, well, Ernie, what do? We look at the number next to the 2 because 2 is in tenths place, all right, with the th on it, with the th. 2 is in the 10th place, and we've got to decide, is it going to stay at 2 or is it going to move up to 3 when we do a rounding moment? And I look at this, and 5 is halfway in the middle. We basically are going to bump it up. That's the general rule of thumb. So we're going to keep 48 right there by its lonesome, and we're going to change that 25 up to 3/10. That's the round-off method. Now, just real quickly summarizing what we did on this, we basically start out with 63, made decimal and 2 zeros there. Put the 14 75 underneath there, and we work a subtraction going on here, all right? We work our subtraction. We've got to borrow all the way over here to the 2, all the way over to the 3, it's going to leave us with 2. We have 10, we borrow again, we have 10 over here, we have a 9 left here, ready to do our subtraction. There's a lot of stuff going on, step by step, and we do end up with this 48 25 eventually rounding off to 48 3/10. All right.
For more math help, visit TNLearn.org.